Let's get Tessa over here, and let's bring that light on. And I think we have enough power. We can bring it to this side just a little bit. Yeah, that can go from perfect right behind. That's perfect. Let me grab just a little sip of that. Tessa, I think I'm going to put you. Do I have some more travel? Yeah, good. Let's put you right about here, and I'll move this over this way a little bit. Something like that. Great, let me just power that. Let me put a little reflector on that real quick. So yeah, so these things just bayonet on, and you get pretty used to doing this after a while. Hello. Except for when you're on live camera. And I'm going to turn down the power of this a little bit. So let me change that lamp. There we go. So now it's down pretty low. So now I've got it on relative brightness. So wherever I have the power button, and let me kill that beep because that's pretty annoying. There we go. Okay, so let's just consider here that I'm working with Tessa and I'm shooting from over here. Let me just raise this up and I'll get back over there in position. So I'm not too worried about what we see on her face yet, but I do want you to understand one of the main points that I'm trying to make here. Always be sure, and with cords and cables, make sure that you're real cognizant of where they are. One of the guys that I used to work with was a real stickler for details. And one of those was make sure that there's cords aren't ever doing this. Get them to not do that. And for me, it just always has become a habit to reach around and just do that. So they're not out there hanging, because somebody's going to trip in the dark. And it's always a good idea also to put a cord under the leg of a C-stand so that there's not a loop like that can grab a toe. So small, subtle things like that. Also, we were talking about this last night. When you have to raise a light up like this, raise the top section first. Raise the bottom section last. Because if you raise the bottom section first and you need more travel, you can't because your knob's way up there and you can't reach it. So Jim's like, well, yeah, of course. But when you're a fresh, new 24-year-old photo student going, oh, I'm such an idiot, and everybody's looking at you funny because you lower the light stand down, then put it back up.
Well, I have to be honest. The tripod, the leg on the lens thing, yeah. I was like, oh yeah, duh. So you got me on that one.
There are subtle little things that we all do, and you just have to pay attention to the small, funky little fun details of our craft. So working with a reflector. Now, obviously, we've got a lot of light in this room, and so I'm not trying to illustrate the point too much. But I will say, in the case, I'm just going to move this. I just want to move this guy over just a little bit further. If I can just move it another foot, I'd be good. That's great. That's perfect right there. Great. So Tessa, let's put you right there. And so consider my camera is here. And I'm shooting back this way. And I've got Tessa, and she's being lit from one side this way. So let's turn you away from the light a little bit more. Good. All your weight on your left foot. Yay. And let your right foot point right at me. Okay. Yep. Yeah, perfect. And bring your head to me just right there. Fine. Great. Okay, so here we go. We got forget all the overheads for the video, but we got our main light coming from 45 degrees. I'm going to have a catch light at about 10 o'clock in her eye. That's what Da Vinci told me. He doesn't even know he told me 10 o'clock, but he did. So that's what I'm going. So now, I want to put a reflector over here, and I want to open up the shadow on this side of her face over here. In this case, and for years and years I did this, where I would bring my reflector up like this, and you can see it, you'll see this when we get into shooting, but you'll see this lighten up this side of her face, right? So this is just another tool with that tool to open up, and then I can control with my distance, I can control how much of that is being filled. I can control how much of that light is opening up that shadow. But here's something that nobody ever taught me, and that is the proper placement, it's easier for me to say proper placement, of the reflector. I always would just put the reflector over here sort of next to her and bring it up. The problem with that is if I do that, and I started seeing this in my work as I started becoming a little bit more critical and I had a little bit more of a critical eye. And what I found was there was a little black strip, or not a black strip, but a dark strip running down her nose. And I couldn't figure out what that was. What it was that light is coming around her face and it's creating a certain amount of shadow on this side. I was filling from here. This was becoming a secondary source from over here. But it was like think about the tip of the nose. It's like light, shadow, oh, another light. And that would be at a lesser value, but still it was another source. And what I learned that day when I sort of really identified this and was looking at this light, it's like, what is going on with this dark area? I realized what I was doing. I've got light number 1, I've got light number 2. Even though it's darker, it was light number 2. And so to fix that, what I had to start doing was bringing my reflector considerably forward so that this light and that reflector on the shadow side of her face becomes a continuation of that. So it's almost as if that light just goes all the way around and keeps going. People call that a wraparound light. Well, I always hate that term because light doesn't wrap. Light can't bend. Light goes straight until it hits water. Then it can bend. But until it hits water, it's going in a straight line. So wraparound light, I don't buy that at all. And I've heard it from video guys. I've heard it from still guys. Sorry, I don't buy it anymore. And I used to dance around it and say, well, yeah, it kind of is like, no, it's not. It doesn't wrap. It doesn't bend. But by bringing that reflector up here, what happens now, I can move it in such a way that when I bring it into place, and you'll see this as we shoot, when I bring it into place, now that light is changing the density of her shadow, but it's doing it as a continuation of that light as it comes around the face. And now we are truly sculpting her face. And we're sculpting the features of her face. Does that make sense? Hugely important. Hugely important. Okay? So now, I'm not a huge fan of the gold. I am a big fan of the silver, but only if used as a reflector below for a shot like that. You see that highlight in the bottom of her eye?
Are you referring to the image in the center?
Yep, the one in the center. And you can also see a little bit of it there, but it's not as prominent as I put it in that one right there. And the idea with that is to open up the shadow under the eyes, under the nose, under the chin. That was primarily what the goal was there, if that makes any sense. And you can see that because of the placement of the beauty dish, those cheekbones are strong, but they were almost too strong. So by bringing that silver down below, it kind of calms down that drama from being quite so pronounced. So let me I want to put the beauty dish back up if I could. Let me pull off this guy real quick. Okay. That kind of might be hot. Hot!
Tony,
It's kind of like...
while you're putting that on there, we've got a question from Anoop in Dubai. When using a silver or a gold reflector, does it actually change the color temperature of the reflected part of the subject?
The gold, yes. The silver, no. The silver is pretty neutral, but the gold will. It can kind of mess with you a little bit. Yeah. And to me, that's why I don't like gold on the face. It gives me an unrealistic look. So I kind of try to stay away from gold on the face. Even outdoors, I mean, some people will say, well, it helps neutralize the blue, cool sky on the shade side of a building. Well, maybe, but it's a little bit too heavy for me on the face. But I sure do use them, but not for face. I'm going to turn this modeling light up quite a bit higher now. And we can see, let me put this into position. And again, just like with a tripod, as Jim mentioned, when you're using a light, I always try to find a leg to put under the light shaping device. If it's a softbox or the beauty dish, I want a leg directly underneath it to help give me added stability. Okay? I don't want the weight to be between the legs because it can go over too easily. But if the weight is right over a leg, it can't go over. Make sense? Okay. So I'll drop that down just a little bit more. There we go. Yeah, so the beauty dish, I might put it in the position kind of like this. Let me just move this over. I might work with it in a position sort of like that. You're good right there. Here, just fold your arms for me. Just kind of, there you go. And then depending on where I'm cropping, this might then sit down just below here. And distance-wise, it's a pretty subjective thing, wherever you kind of like the distance. For me, the distance is sort of either because I'm brilliant or because I'm lucky. I'm not saying. I do know that I like the reflector width, distance from my stand to my model. What? Like this. See that distance? That's a perfect distance for me. Because now I got a reflector. And often, depending on the light stand, you can just rest one part of it on a knob like that. And if her hands aren't in the shot, she can even hold one corner of it. Or you can put it on a little table or on a small stand and clamp it, however you want it. But what this does is, again, just like on that shot there, it really opens up under the eye, under the nose, under the chin. All that whole region gets kind of opened up a bit. And it works really well.
And is that kind of the angle that you like to hold it at? Is that kind of a slightly inclined angle?
It kind of depends. It kind of depends on how close it is to her. Because if it's too close, that angle can be a little bit too sharp. The one right here behind me here, I think that angle was too high. I've got it pretty high. And it really did block up the shadow underneath. And I'm not sure that I quite got what I wanted there. I'm close, but I'm not quite sure. This is the first time I've seen these prints. I just shot this stuff. So I haven't seen these like this yet. So this is my first view here. But I think that one might be a little bit dense in that shadow. And I probably would go back and re-edit that a little bit, maybe open up that shadow a little bit, since I missed that when I shot it. But it's probably on my strip of exposures, because I usually vary those things a little bit.
Love that. And big thanks to White House for these images.
Yeah, they did a great job. This stuff, what's funny about these images, I uploaded these a week ago last Thursday at 11:15. They were in production by 12. They were in finishing by 2:15, 2:20. They were finished and packaged at 3:40, I think, and on a truck at 4. And they're 4 30 by 40s. That kind of turnaround time, that's what White House does. These images are turned like that. And there's no cutoff for Christmas. You need them like right the day before Christmas, week before Christmas, you're going to get them. The next day, they're going to ship.
And
Sometimes
that's why we love them. And they're just good people.
Nice folks.
Sorry, I hate to interrupt. I just love it when we get to work with cool people, and they are genuinely
Isn't
nice
it funny
people.
how our world is? We all like to do business with people that we like. The buttheads might have better products sometimes, but we don't like them, so we don't use them. That's the way I feel about it anyway. No buttheads.
Let's keep going.
Any question on this at all yet? Anything you want to talk about before we move on?
I have a question, Tony.
Yeah, please, Brett.
On the beauty dish here, are you using it to create a little more contrast in her face, or is it just more of an even lighting across her face?
I'm both of the above. I'm creating a little bit more contrast. It is a contrastier source, but it is also a source with on her skin and her skin and her. It really does some nice smooth things to the skin. It almost gives a milky look to their skin. I will be real honest and say you get somebody that's, let's say, way north of 50, not the best light choice. Because it's going to be a harsh looking light to their skin. And, you know, what do wrinkles appear as?
Shadows.
I knew you were going to say that.
Highlights.
And they do appear as shadows on light skin. But they appear as highlights on dark skin. So I know that if I am trying to indeed create a complementary likeness, I've got to at least control the highlights and shadows. And sometimes with people that are a little bit older that have wrinkles, those highlights and valleys, that's what they become. They're peaks and valleys on their skin. And I know that the larger the source, the softer that all becomes. And we're going to talk about that a lot tomorrow. Tomorrow's a lot about controlling this kind of textural features of people's faces and stuff. So, but I think the beauty dish, the thing that I love about the beauty dish is with someone like this, you can't miss. You know, you got to work really hard to take a bad picture of this girl. I'm telling you, you know, really hard.
Awesome. And so, Tony, what are the sizes on these guys? right here?
So the soft boxes that I use. That softbox that I had out here, that's a 3 foot by 4 foot, basically.
Great.
And that is my go-to guy for most things. And I've got 3 of those that I travel with, pretty much. Then I've got my larger, it's about a 5 foot Octabank, which I use, which is brilliant.
Yes.
Then I've got my big boy, which is a 4 foot by 6 foot softbox, which is so forgiving. It's traveling with a window light. It's really great. Then I brought with me here, and we're going to do some shots with my 7-foot umbrella. I've got a 7-foot silver umbrella. It's a monster. It's only $99 tool. You can buy it for $99. It's the smartest thing I've ever seen. Best single tool I have. And I use it a lot. And in fact, I'm going to do a photograph of all of you guys. We're going to use one light source and light all of you. And I can only do that with this one light source. It works really well. And then I've got smaller strip lights as well that I use twin strip lights that I travel with, as well as, and then my beauty dishes, they're all the same size. They're 22-inch beauty dishes. And I've got them with and without grids, and I've got the socks for them, the diffuse socks, and all the little accessories for them.
Quick question from Julie Ux, who says, I really, really want to know if there's a practical use for the black side of the reflector. We've been using the other side. Maybe you want to talk about that?
We're going to hit it pretty hard on Wednesday.
Oh, beautiful.
We are, we're talking about, for me, I spend a lot of time talking about 4 what I call applications of light. I promise I'm coming back. I talk about 4 what I call the applications of light. And that is additive, subtractive, transmission, and reflective. And I've been preaching about these for 20 years. And for the subtractive, I'm one of the few guys I know that uses that black side as much as I do. But I do it because I learned from watching cinematographers and watching movie makers. And what they do is, they sometimes will call it negative fill. You'll hear that term. It's like, what does that mean? I don't want to fill in the shadow. I want to create more shadow. I want more negative fill. And so we're going to talk about that, especially when we do the full-length shot with my 7-foot umbrella. I want to show you what negative fill does with black. And then we're going to flop it around and do positive fill. I'm not here to tell you which one's right. You guys have to figure that on your own. You have to live with your work, not me. But I will show you what all the tools are and what they all do. And for me, a black is, if I've got 4 things, if I've got black, white, silver, and gold, I will promise you I will use the black absolutely at least 25% of the time. I use it a lot.
Love it. So we'll get to see it in action.
Yeah. It creates more drama and more directionality to my light, without question.
Great. Cool. Let's keep going.
Okay. So let me take this guy off here real quick. I think I'm going to put on, nope, I got an umbrella right here. I'll use this umbrella. But I will take off this beauty dish real quick. So let me just pop this guy off. And if I could hand that to you, thank you. And let me just put an umbrella reflector up. And, don't get too concerned on exact placement of things. Sometimes we get a little bit too concerned about everything being very, very precise. Some of this stuff is not nearly as precise as you might think. Exposures are, but nothing else. Everything else is a little bit of a, not a crapshoot, but certainly there's some room for, there's some margin for error built in. This is a small umbrella, and I don't use them a lot, but when I do use them, it's because I want light to spread over a large area. And in this case, think about, let me put this guy in here. So look at the way I've got it placed here. You can see how the distance is from the head to the center part of the umbrella. And so if I move this guy here out further, that's going to make it even a larger spread and almost make it a softer quality of light that covers a larger area. But if I'm going to just photograph just her and I want to bring that light down a little bit, then I'll bring the rod down. And I can bring that guy in here, and now I'm lighting a little bit of a smaller area. And it's kind of, I'm not going to say it's making it a smaller source, but it is concentrating a little. I'm still going to have that area lit, but it is going to be concentrated slightly, almost like a little bit of a light vignette. Yeah, that you can't identify. Soft-edged, very, very soft-edged vignette. It is just a little bit hotter in the center than the sides, over area. Okay? Make sense? Okay.
Can I ask a quick question, Tony?
Yep,
Do you
sure.
mind? Just a real quickie. I've never, as a photographer and doing this same setup, I've never understood why I don't see the shadow of the light when it's bouncing backwards. Where does the light actually come out of this setup?
All around it.
Okay.
The only time you'll see the shadow from the light is if you photograph a wine bottle
Okay.
or something that's highly reflective that's dark.
Okay.
It's the only time you'll see it. You'll never see it on the face.
Yeah.
Which is why you can get away with lighting someone with these ribs. The metallic folding rods, the ribs that are inside the umbrella, those never appear, except they would in your glasses.
Oh, gotcha.
And if you were holding a glass of Cabernet, they would, because it's dark.
Right.
If it was clear and white water, they might not be seen. So you have to think about this. It's almost like working with light tonality subjects versus dark tonality subjects. If I'm working with something of a light tone, all of my contrast controls have to do with something dark. So like if I'm going to photograph your white shirt for the catalog for, Walmart or wherever you got that shirt, it's my job. Somebody had to say something. But seriously, if I'm shooting a light clothing,
Yeah.
I've got to skim light across it and create shadows. Or you wouldn't see texture. Like if there's fine lines or logos or whatever, you'd never see the texture, right? Which is why on a bride, when you photograph a bride, you absolutely, with lots of beadwork, you want that bride, you've got to show that main light. Say, let's do this. Let's put you right back in the position right over here for me. So if I photograph her and she is my new bride, let me raise this guy up just a little bit. Turn sort of toward me a little bit, right there. The last thing that I would ever want to do is to light her like this with a large source or an umbrella of any kind. The last thing I want to do if she's wearing white is to light flat into her chest, because I have no contouring. It's just flat. Sorry, audio guy. Bam. he's somebody in the control room just went. I don't want to flat light anything that's white. I have to have shadows across something that's white. So I would turn you the other way. Now I'm skimming light across. Or I could light her from, if you're standing in that position, I could light her from back here, skimming light across this way. As long as I'm skimming light across white, I've got shadows. Shadows show me contrast and create dimension, shape, form, texture, all that. And then, let's talk about something that's black and shiny, for example. Then my highlight is all that matters on the black, right? Shadow doesn't matter when I'm photographing something black. I don't care about the shadow, but I do care about the highlight. And often a highlight becomes a part of the design element. Think about that. If I'm photographing a white car, I could light it with a speed light, because you'll never see the reflection of the speed light in the white car. But if I photograph a black Porsche 911 with a speed light, what you see is one hot white spot right on the hood. Not good. That's why we have these big, gigantic Kino flows, and we've got these studios with big white soft boxes that I can drop down over the hood of a car. Because then the highlight is the design element for this picture, not the shadow. It's all about photographing something dark and shiny. Make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
It's hugely important to understand what side of the scale you're going to work on, And I know that I kind of get on the soapbox a little bit about some of these things, and I get a little bit anal on some of this stuff. But for me, it's just that I don't want to be fooled. I was fooled for years. I didn't know what I was doing for years. I was buying houses and cars because I was friendly, not because my work was any good, And then I met this guy named Dean Collins who said, "You ought to get better." What? You should improve your work a little bit. You could be better. Okay, and I started getting better. And I think that's part of it is, when we critique pictures and when I judge photo contests and things of this nature, you got to be honest with people when you look at the work. You got to say, this is great, except here's what you need to do to improve it. Not subjective tips, that's your opinion, but objective things that you might improve upon or things that you might just want to look at differently. So, how did I get over there? You guys just said, bam, there he goes.
All right, let's rein you back in.
Back down that rabbit hole.
Just a quick reminder for, let's see, who was it? SciTech, who says, Tony ran through the 4 applications of light pretty fast. 3 I'm familiar with, but what was the 4th after additive, subtractive?
Transmission and reflective. Additive, subtractive, transmission, and reflective. We're going to hit these really hard later in the week. Basically, additive, when you've got a given amount of light and you're bringing more light to it. Subtractive, I'm taking light away from where I don't need it. Or I'm trying to remove light that is giving me an unpleasing result. Here's a perfect example of subtractive light. Think about this. Tessa, see, sometimes I get it, sometimes I'm like, Carol,
I'll answer to that.
think about we're shooting on an overcast day. I've got this soft box in Seattle. You know the day. I've been here. I know how this works in Seattle. If it's not raining, it sometimes can be a little gray. I know these things. So the light is so soft, it's beautiful, but it is downward casting, right? Because it's downward casting, I got a shadow under here, I got a shadow under here, and I've got a shadow under her eyes. So I can take, instead of just adding flash to that, or adding a reflector on the bottom, bouncing light back in, let's take the black, let's take the subtractor of light, and let's put it overhead like this to interrupt all that soft light that's coming straight down from the top. And as we move it forward or back, we're placing it in such a way that, Brett, can you come up here and help me? Just hold this one side for 1 second. Since you're so tall, I do remember that about you.
Yeah, we actually did this on
We,
the roof.
we did this once. On a very hot day that I got sunburned.
Yes.
Now, let's move it forward about a foot. Okay, so right there. So let's think about this. If I'm lighting her, I'm looking at this from the side, and I'm looking at this front edge as sort of the interruption, keeping that soft light, that top light coming down. So move that way just a half step, a little bit more, a little bit more. Now then, I'm just lowering my light source down. Now it's coming at a different angle to her face. Now it's a lot more pleasing, and that's why I use subtractive light so much. That's just one of the ways to use subtractive light. Certainly, I can take this, thank you, Britt. I can take this, and I've got her being lit by the umbrella on this side of her face, and I can bring this guy in. All these walls in the studio are light colored. This light is bouncing all over this room, which is great when you want light bouncing all over this room, and it's awful when you don't. So you got to have the black to interrupt the light that's bouncing all over the room. So I can bring this up right here, and it totally will change this photograph, completely change this picture. And all of a sudden now I'm introducing more drama. Now all of a sudden I'm introducing more directionality to that light because I'm interrupting anything else from getting in there. So additive, subtractive, transmission, anytime light goes through an interruption, right? So this, completely 100% transmission light. Light has to go through this. And it's enormously important that I use this. And I'm going to cover that pretty heavily as we get throughout the week. And then the other one, additive, subtractive, transmission, and then reflective. And reflective is exactly what it sounds like. You know, reflective, that's a reflective source. Some people wouldn't agree with me, but it is. The light's going in there and bouncing around and coming back out. Using a reflective source like that in the studio is pretty important. You know, all of these tools, they all are important. If you were all one family and you came in the studio for a Christmas card photo this week, because, you know, people always wait till the last minute. Seriously, I mean, it would be one of those situations where, how am I going to do this? I can't do this. I can't light you guys with a softbox. Not evenly. That one umbrella, I could light you all evenly. And it might be that in terms of placement, if I had this thing turned towards you, and I was over on one side just a little bit, like here, and let's say I was just going to light this family up, the last thing I would want to do is aim it here, because you two guys are going to be great. I've lost the rest of you. I mean, you're still going to get plenty of light, but what I could do is aim it past halfway. I would turn it like that, and then I might have to power it up. But even so, I could get even light on Lee, and I could get the same amount of light on Bob by doing this way.
And just in case people at home can't tell from the angle,
Sorry.
The light is actually pointing directly at Lee, which is the farthest person in
Yeah.
the line.
Yeah, you go way past halfway if your light has to be on one side, which it almost always does, or it's going to be in your shot. So, you know, but it's important. I think this kind of stuff is pretty important, that we make sure that anytime that you're controlling light, whether it's a softbox, an umbrella, an Octabank, all of that stuff. Think about that placement, and while you're shooting and while you're setting up, you're literally looking at your subjects and you're going like this. Okay, I get it, right about there, bam. Now our eyes just came to life. Where right there, they might not. And then again, with an umbrella and in the studio, it might be that if I was just photographing one of you, maybe Britt, I might have you, well, I'll do it with Tessa. So with Tessa here, right here, I know I've got X amount of light getting on my background. But if I cheat just a little bit, I know I've got a lot more light on my background. And that just makes me more valuable to my client. You know, and part of it, you know, it's sometimes it can be a timing issue, and it can be an economical issue. Some people charge by the day for their time, or by the hour, or by the shot. So for me, if I'm efficient with my time and get in, get it done, especially something that's complex, if I can get in, get a shot, and get out quicker than the next guy, should I be penalized because I'm fast and get paid less because I'm paid by the hour? I don't think so. I think I should be paid more because I was so efficient. I took 5 minutes of the CEO's time instead of 3 hours of him going, you guys ready for this yet? I'm in, I got it done, and I'm out. They love that about me. I might not be very good, but I'm very fast. It's like my prints. They're not very good, but they're really big. You want your pictures to look good? Make them bigger.